The first step is really to take a step back and make sure that you're making time and making room for this creativity. One of the reasons that the survey produced this results is because what people are finding is that time is really the main ingredient in being able to be creative. And what that means exactly is with automation taking away some of the manual effort that people have to put into some of the more mundane tasks, they now have time to focus on, bigger challenges. How do we rethink the way, for example, for marketing, how do I get away from just doing, the blog, the tweet, the landing page, and think, how am I going to connect with my customers in new ways? And the reason I think that this is important, when you look at sort of the innovative leaders in every industry, before there was Uber, no one could imagine being able to call a taxi from their phone. That's a creative idea that took a lot in order to really develop, to nurture, and it shifted the complete way that we actually look at ride sharing. Well, I think in many different ways. It definitely depends on sort of the team and the industry. And creativity is such a subjective term. But the way that I think about it is sort of rethinking the way that we approach something, stepping outside of the status quo and looking at ways that are, what's never been done before. The ways that it can be put to, I think, good use and productive use is looking at what are your goals. If your goals as a company and as a marketer are to grow market share, how do you do that in a way that is different? How do you make an impact, and how do you actually connect with someone in a way that is new and that's never been done before? And the truth is, you can only really get to those really innovative ideas and those creative strategies if you're given the freedom to do so. So I think that understanding as a manager that freeing up, even just a small percentage of your staff's time in order to focus on these creative ideas, brainstorming and then putting it into action. It's really, you need to plan to have that separate time that you don't really know what is going to be put to use during that time. But understand that there is an ROI on letting people be able to express themselves and to find new ways to do old ways of thinking. The one way that I look at it is you have the shift of the way that people are working. The disciplines might not change, but the way in which we shift and evolve will change. So for example, if you look at maybe 30 years ago, pushing buttons on an elevator was an actual job. Someone stood there, you said that you wanted to go to the second floor and would actually push that job. You can imagine that, the satisfaction probably wasn't very high there. One of the examples that we looked at in a talk just a moment ago was the automotive industry. The assembly line was revolutionary in how we approached manufacturing at scale, but it was very much, someone had a hammer and nail, added a part to a car, and then it moved on. Now you have the same type of role, but it's much more complex. We've automated a lot of that mundane, I'd say, task management, and it's become something that you can be more creative, that you're using more technology-based tools. So in terms of higher value, and again, I do think that it's slightly subjective, but what you're saying is that you're not spending time doing the boring and the mundane, you're spending time actually solving problems. So whether that is, when you look at advertising 30 years ago, it was really looking through a catalog and buying advertising placements, which is great, but advertising has completely shifted with performance marketing, and now it's really a numbers and a data game. And there's a lot more strategy involved, a lot more numbers, and a lot more analytical thinking. So it's not to say that we won't sort of need that sort of task management, but it's freeing up space through automation in order to kind of tackle the bigger problems and to provide more value as a whole. One of the survey results we found is that 95% of people didn't feel adequately skilled, didn't feel adequately trained to face the future of automation. So while people were excited about it, it also meant that there was a lot of apprehension, a lot of anxiety around what that means. The truth is that when we look at, some of the scary figures around automation will lose 800 million jobs, there's also a finding that it will create 133 million jobs. I think that we need to realize that the future of automation is here. It's not going anywhere, and the pace of disruption is increasing. The world is not going to stop, but what we can do is empower people to upskill on what they need to in order to be more technical. With online platforms like Coursera, Code Academy, I know a number of people, stay-at-home moms, that took a course online and now are employed as software engineers. And I'm not saying that this is right for everyone, but I think that we do have an obligation as industry leaders to really encourage and create more business, create opportunities for people to thrive. And a lot of that is going to be both providing that opportunity and having people step up to the table and recognize that they need to grow their skill set in different ways to be ready for the modern workforce.